Welcome to our series where we dive into the inspiring stories of people who courageously face the challenges of depression. Each story reveals personal journeys of resilience, strength, and hope, showing that even in the darkest moments, there's a path forward. Join us as we shed light on these brave individuals who fight depression every day, sharing their experiences to remind us all that no one is truly alone. Chapter 1: The Shadows of Silence. Isabella. Isabella sat at the edge of her mother's bed, staring at the fragile, still figure that had been the center of her world for as long as she could remember. Her mother, Maria, had battled illness for years, but no amount of preparation could have softened the blow of her passing. The room, filled with the faint scent of lavender from her mother's favorite sachets, now seemed colder, emptier. The day of the funeral was a blur. Friends and family gathered to pay their respects, offering condolences that felt like mere words against the overwhelming silence that enveloped Isabella's heart. Her father, Thomas, tried to be strong for both of them, but Isabella could see the cracks in his facade. They stood together, side by side, yet felt worlds apart, both grappling with the void left behind by Maria's absence. Days turned into weeks, and the routine of life continued, but Isabella felt herself slipping further into darkness. She stopped answering phone calls, avoided friends, and withdrew from the activities she once loved. Her job at the local bookstore, which had always been a sanctuary, now felt like a prison. Books that once provided escape and comfort now mocked her with their stories of hope and triumph. Nights were the hardest. Isabella lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with memories of her mother. She could hear Maria's voice in the quiet moments, offering advice, sharing stories, laughing. But these memories, once a source of joy, now brought tears and an unbearable sense of loss. Thomas noticed the change in his daughter. He tried to reach out, suggesting they take a trip or visit family, but Isabella declined each offer. She felt like a burden, convinced that her grief was something she had to bear alone. She didn't want to weigh her father down with her pain. One rainy afternoon, while wandering aimlessly through town, Isabella stumbled upon a small cafe she had never noticed before. Drawn in by the warm light spilling through the windows, she entered and found a seat by the window. The cafe was cozy, filled with the aroma of freshly baked pastries and brewed coffee. It was a stark contrast to the storm raging outside. As she sipped her tea, a woman approached her table. She was older, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "May I sit here?" she asked. Isabella nodded, grateful for the company, even if it was from a stranger. The woman introduced herself as Eleanor. They talked about mundane things at first, the weather, the town, the cafe. But there was something about Eleanor that made Isabella feel safe. Eventually, the conversation turned deeper, and Isabella found herself sharing her story, her grief, and her struggle with depression. Eleanor listened intently, her eyes full of understanding. She shared her own story of loss and how she had found solace in helping others. "Grief is like a storm," she said. "It can be overwhelming, but it doesn't last forever. You just have to hold on and find your way through it." Inspired by Eleanor's words, Isabella decided to seek professional help. She found a therapist named Dr. Harper, who specialized in grief counseling. Their sessions were difficult at first, opening up about her feelings was painful. But Dr. Harper was patient, guiding Isabella through the labyrinth of her emotions. With time, Isabella began to understand her depression. It wasn't something she could simply wish away, but something she had to acknowledge and work through. She learned coping strategies and started to rebuild her life piece by piece. Thomas, seeing the changes in his daughter, felt a glimmer of hope. They began to talk more, sharing their memories of Maria and finding comfort in each other. They visited Maria's favorite places, cooked her favorite meals, and even laughed at the silly things she used to do. It was a slow process, but they were healing together. Isabella returned to her job at the bookstore with a renewed sense of purpose. She organized book readings and community events, creating a space where people could come together and share their stories. The store became a hub of activity, filled with laughter, discussions, and a sense of community that Isabella had longed for. She also reconnected with her friends, who had been worried about her. They welcomed her back with open arms, offering support and understanding. Isabella realized that she didn't have to carry her grief alone. There were people who cared about her and wanted to help. One evening, as Isabella was closing the bookstore, she found a letter addressed to her on the counter. It was from Eleanor. In the letter, Eleanor expressed her happiness at seeing Isabella's progress and encouraged her to keep moving forward. She reminded Isabella that grief was a part of life, but so was healing and growth. Years passed, and Isabella continued to honor her mother's memory while building a life of her own. She pursued her passion for writing, penning a memoir about her journey through grief and depression. The book, titled The Shadows of Silence, resonated with many readers, offering them hope and comfort. Isabella and Thomas grew closer, their bond strengthened by their shared experiences. They continued to support each other, celebrating the milestones and facing the challenges together. Maria's presence was still felt in their lives, but it no longer brought pain. It brought a sense of peace and gratitude for the time they had shared. Isabella often thought about Eleanor and the chance encounter that had changed her life. She never saw Eleanor again, but she believed that their meeting had been a turning point. It had reminded her that even in the darkest moments, there was light to be found. As Isabella stood at her mother's grave on the anniversary of her passing, she placed a bouquet of lavender flowers on the headstone. She smiled, feeling a sense of calm and closure. "Thank you, Mom," she whispered. "For everything." The wind whispered through the trees, carrying her words into the heavens. And for the first time in a long while, Isabella felt at peace. She knew that her journey wasn't over, but she was ready to face whatever came next with strength and resilience. She had found her way through the shadows of silence and emerged into the light of a new beginning. Chapter 2: Rebuilding Sophia. Sophia stared at the packed suitcase by the door, her heart heavy with the weight of an ending she never saw coming. For 8 years, her life had been intertwined with James's. They had met in college, shared dreams, and built a life together. Now, it all lay in ruins, a casualty of irreconcilable differences and unspoken resentments. The breakup conversation replayed in her mind like a broken record. James's words, "We've grown apart," Sophia, echoed in the emptiness of her apartment. She remembered his eyes, once filled with love and warmth, now distant and cold. The man she thought she would spend her life with was leaving, and with him went the future she had envisioned. In the days that followed, Sophia fell into a deep depression. She stopped going to work, stopped answering calls from concerned friends, and retreated into herself. The world outside seemed meaningless, a blur of motion and sound she no longer felt a part of. She spent hours lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, her mind numb. Sophia's apartment, once a cozy home, became a prison. The curtains remained drawn, shutting out the sunlight and the world beyond. Piles of unwashed dishes and laundry accumulated, mirroring the chaos in her mind. She couldn't bring herself to care about anything. Even the simplest tasks felt insurmountable. Her friends tried to reach out, but Sophia pushed them away. She couldn't bear their pity or their well-meaning advice. "It will get better," they said, but she couldn't see how. Her heart felt like a shattered vase, the pieces scattered too far to ever be whole again. Nights were the hardest. Sophia lay in bed, haunted by memories of happier times. The laughter, the shared dreams, the quiet moments of intimacy, they all felt like cruel reminders of what she had lost. Sleep eluded her, and when it did come, it was filled with nightmares of James leaving her over and over again. One rainy afternoon, as Sophia sat on the couch, mindlessly scrolling through her phone, she stumbled upon an old photo of herself. It was taken a few years ago, on a hiking trip with James and their friends. She looked happy, vibrant, full of life. The woman in the photo felt like a stranger. Something in Sophia stirred. She realized she didn't recognize the person she had become. She missed the old Sophia, the one who laughed easily, who embraced life with open arms. She knew she couldn't go on living like this. The thought of continuing in this state of numbness and pain was unbearable. Determined to make a change, Sophia decided to seek help. She found a therapist named Dr. Collins, who specialized in dealing with grief and loss. Their first session was difficult. Sophia struggled to open up, to put her feelings into words. But Dr. Collins was patient, encouraging her to take small steps. Therapy became a lifeline for Sophia. Dr. Collins helped her navigate the tangled web of her emotions, teaching her to understand and process her grief. They explored the reasons behind the breakup, the unresolved issues and unmet needs that had driven her and James apart. It was painful to confront these truths, but it was also liberating. Dr. Collins introduced Sophia to mindfulness and self-compassion exercises. She learned to be kinder to herself, to acknowledge her pain without judgment. Slowly, she began to rebuild her sense of self. She rediscovered hobbies she had neglected, like painting and reading. She started going for walks, letting the fresh air and sunlight soothe her troubled mind. Sophia also reconnected with her friends. She apologized for pushing them away and found that they were still there, ready to support her. They encouraged her to join a local book club, where she met new people and rediscovered her love for literature. It was a small step, but it marked the beginning of her re-engagement with the world. Months passed, and Sophia continued to heal. She enrolled in a cooking class, something she had always wanted to do but never found the time for. She found joy in experimenting with new recipes, in the simple act of creating something delicious. The kitchen became a sanctuary, a place where she could lose herself in the rhythm of chopping, stirring, and tasting. Sophia also took up yoga, finding solace in the practice of mindfulness and movement. The physical activity helped her feel more connected to her body, to the present moment. She learned to breathe through her pain, to let go of the past, and to embrace the now. One day, while browsing through a local art gallery, Sophia met a man named Alex. He was an artist, passionate about his work and full of stories about his travels and experiences. They struck up a conversation, and for the first time in a long while, Sophia felt a spark of interest. She enjoyed talking to him, sharing her thoughts and listening to his. They began to see each other more often, first as friends, then as something more. Alex was patient and understanding, never pushing Sophia to move faster than she was comfortable with. He respected her boundaries and supported her journey of healing. With him, Sophia felt a sense of safety and possibility. Sophia's relationship with Alex blossomed, but it wasn't without its challenges. She still had moments of doubt and insecurity, remnants of her past relationship. But Alex was always there, reassuring her, reminding her of her worth. Together, they navigated the ups and downs, building a foundation of trust and mutual respect. Sophia's relationship with herself also deepened. She continued her therapy sessions with Dr. Collins, delving into her past and understanding the patterns that had shaped her. She learned to set healthy boundaries, to communicate her needs, and to prioritize her well-being. She embraced her journey of self-discovery, finding strength and resilience she never knew she had. As the years went by, Sophia found herself in a place of peace and fulfillment. She had rebuilt her life, piece by piece, and in the process, had discovered a deeper sense of self. She and Alex moved in together, creating a home filled with love, laughter, and creativity. Sophia also pursued her passion for writing, penning a memoir about her journey through heartbreak and healing. The book, titled Rebuilding Sophia, resonated with many readers, offering them hope and inspiration. She received letters from people who had experienced similar struggles, thanking her for sharing her story. On a sunny afternoon, as Sophia sat in her garden, surrounded by blooming flowers, she reflected on her journey. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer defined her. She had learned to carry it with grace, to let it shape her without breaking her. She thought of James and felt a sense of gratitude. Their relationship had taught her valuable lessons, had pushed her to grow and to rediscover herself. She wished him well, hoping he had found his own path to happiness. As Sophia looked towards the future, she felt a sense of excitement and possibility. She had rebuilt her life, stronger and more resilient than before. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew she had the strength to face them. With a smile, Sophia stood up, ready to embrace the new chapter of her life. She had emerged from the shadows of heartbreak, into the light of a new beginning. She was ready to live fully, to love deeply, and to continue her journey of self-discovery. Years later, Sophia looked back on her journey with pride. She had built a life filled with love, creativity, and purpose. Her relationship with Alex had flourished, grounded in mutual respect and understanding. They supported each other's dreams and celebrated each other's successes. Sophia's memoir had become a bestseller, touching the hearts of many readers. She had also started a blog, where she shared her thoughts on healing, self-discovery, and resilience. Through her writing, she connected with a community of people who were also on their journeys of healing and growth. Sophia had learned that life was a series of chapters, each with its own challenges and joys. She embraced the uncertainty, knowing that she had the strength and resilience to face whatever came her way. She had rebuilt herself, piece by piece, and in the process, had discovered a deeper, more authentic self. As she looked towards the future, Sophia felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She was grateful for the journey, for the lessons learned, and for the love and support that had carried her through. She knew that her story was far from over, and she was excited to see what the next chapter would bring. With a heart full of gratitude and a spirit ready to embrace the unknown, Sophia continued her journey, knowing that she had the power to rebuild, to heal, and to thrive. She had found her way through the darkness, into the light of a new beginning. And she was ready to live fully, to love deeply, and to continue her journey of self-discovery, one step at a time. Chapter 3: Reawakening Theodore. Theodore sat in his small, dimly lit apartment, staring blankly at his computer screen. The rejection email from yet another job application glowed harshly in the darkness, a stark reminder of his year-long struggle with unemployment. He sighed deeply, feeling the weight of his circumstances press down on him, making it hard to breathe. A year ago, Theodore had a promising career in software development. He was part of a vibrant team, working on cutting-edge projects that excited him. But then, the company faced financial troubles, and layoffs became inevitable. Theodore found himself among the unfortunate few who were let go. Initially, he was hopeful. With his skills and experience, he believed finding a new job would be a matter of weeks, perhaps a couple of months at most. However, as time dragged on, hope turned into despair. Rejection followed rejection, and each one chipped away at his confidence. His savings dwindled, and the future looked increasingly bleak. Days blurred into weeks, and weeks into months. Theodore's routine became a monotonous cycle of job applications, rejection emails, and endless hours spent in front of the TV. He stopped going out, avoiding friends and family who tried to reach out. The few times he did meet with them, their well-meaning questions and advice only deepened his sense of inadequacy and failure. Social media, once a source of connection and joy, became a torturous reminder of his stagnant life. Photos of friends' promotions, vacations, and new milestones filled his feed. Theodore couldn't help but compare their thriving lives to his own stagnant existence. He felt like he was stuck in a dark, unending tunnel with no light in sight. Nights were the hardest. Alone in his apartment, silence pressed in on him. His thoughts spiraled into dark places, filled with self-doubt and regret. He replayed every mistake, every missed opportunity, wondering where he went wrong. Sleep became elusive, and when it did come, it was filled with restless dreams that left him exhausted. One chilly autumn morning, Theodore decided to take a walk to clear his mind. The crisp air and the sound of leaves crunching underfoot provided a brief respite from his thoughts. As he wandered aimlessly through the park, he noticed an elderly man sitting on a bench, feeding pigeons. The man looked up and smiled warmly at Theodore. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" he said. Theodore nodded, not trusting himself to speak without revealing the turmoil inside him. He sat down on the bench, a respectful distance from the man, and watched the pigeons flutter and coo. The elderly man introduced himself as George. They chatted about the weather, the park, and the pigeons. There was something comforting about George's presence, a kindness that made Theodore feel a little less alone. They met a few more times in the park over the next weeks, their conversations becoming deeper and more personal. Eventually, Theodore opened up about his unemployment and the depression that had followed. George listened without judgment, sharing his own stories of hardships and resilience. He had been a teacher for many years, guiding students through their struggles, and now found joy in simple things like feeding pigeons and talking to strangers in the park. "Life has its seasons," George said one day. "Winter can be harsh and unforgiving, but it doesn't last forever. Spring always comes, bringing new beginnings." Inspired by George's words, Theodore decided to seek professional help. He found a therapist named Dr. Maxwell, who specialized in treating depression and anxiety. Their first session was challenging. Theodore struggled to articulate his feelings, the words sticking in his throat like unyielding stones. But Dr. Maxwell was patient, guiding him gently through the process. Together, they explored the roots of Theodore's depression. They delved into his fears, his sense of failure, and the overwhelming pressure he felt to find a job. Dr. Maxwell taught him coping mechanisms and mindfulness exercises to help manage his anxiety. Slowly, Theodore began to understand his depression, seeing it not as a personal failure but as a challenge he could overcome. With Dr. Maxwell's encouragement, Theodore started setting small, achievable goals. He updated his resume, tailored his job applications, and practiced for interviews. He also began to take better care of himself, establishing a routine that included exercise, healthy eating, and regular sleep. As Theodore's mental health improved, he reconnected with friends and family. He apologized for pushing them away and found that they were still there, ready to support him. Their encouragement and understanding made a world of difference, helping him feel less isolated and more hopeful. One of his friends, Sarah, suggested he join a local job seekers support group. Initially hesitant, Theodore decided to give it a try. The group met weekly, providing a safe space for people to share their experiences, offer support, and network. Theodore found solace in knowing he wasn't alone in his struggles. He made new friends, learned valuable job search strategies, and gained a renewed sense of purpose. Sarah also introduced Theodore to a volunteer program at a local community center. Helping others gave him a sense of accomplishment and belonging that he had been missing. He tutored children in math and computer skills, rediscovering the joy of teaching and mentoring. The gratitude and smiles of the children he helped lifted his spirits, reminding him of his own worth and capabilities. Months passed, and Theodore continued to build on his progress. He applied for jobs with a newfound confidence, knowing that his worth wasn't defined by his employment status. One day, he received a call from a tech startup looking for a software developer. The interview process was rigorous, but Theodore felt prepared. He showcased his skills, shared his experiences, and spoke passionately about his work. A week later, he received the call he had been waiting for. He got the job. Tears of relief and joy streamed down his face as he thanked the hiring manager. It felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He immediately called his friends and family to share the good news, their cheers and congratulations echoing through the phone. Starting the new job was both exciting and nerve-wracking. Theodore was determined to prove himself, but he also remembered Dr. Maxwell's advice to maintain balance and self-care. He established a routine that allowed him to excel at work while also taking time for himself and his loved ones. Theodore thrived in his new role. The team was supportive and collaborative, the projects challenging and fulfilling. He felt a sense of purpose and belonging that he had sorely missed. His contributions were valued, and he quickly became an integral part of the team. As the months turned into a year, Theodore reflected on his journey. He had come a long way from the dark days of his depression, finding strength and resilience he never knew he had. The support of his friends, family, and Dr. Maxwell had been invaluable, but he also recognized the importance of his own efforts and determination. Theodore continued to volunteer at the community center, finding joy in helping others and giving back. He also maintained his friendships, valuing the connections that had helped him through his toughest times. His relationship with George deepened, the elderly man becoming a mentor and friend who provided wisdom and perspective. One evening, as Theodore sat in the park with George, watching the sunset, he felt a profound sense of peace. The hardships he had faced had not broken him, they had shaped him into a stronger, more compassionate person. He knew that life would continue to have its challenges, but he also knew he had the tools and support to face them. "Thank you, George," Theodore said, his voice filled with gratitude. George smiled, his eyes twinkling. "You've done the hard work, Theodore. Remember, winter doesn't last forever. Spring always comes." Years later, Theodore's life was a testament to his resilience and growth. He had built a successful career, finding joy and fulfillment in his work. He continued to volunteer and mentor, giving back to the community that had supported him. His friendships thrived, and his relationship with George remained a source of wisdom and comfort. Theodore also found love again, meeting a woman named Emily through his volunteer work. They bonded over their shared passion for helping others and built a relationship grounded in mutual respect and understanding. Emily's presence brought warmth and light into Theodore's life, further solidifying his belief in the power of connection and support. As Theodore looked back on his journey, he felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. The dark days of his depression were a part of his story, but they did not define him. He had learned to navigate the seasons of life, finding strength in himself and those around him. One spring morning, as Theodore walked through the park, he noticed a young man sitting on a bench, looking lost and despondent. Remembering his own journey, Theodore approached him with a warm smile. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" he said, echoing George's words from years ago. The young man looked up, surprised but appreciative of the kindness. They struck up a conversation, and Theodore listened as the young man shared his struggles. Offering words of encouragement and sharing his own story, Theodore hoped to provide a glimmer of hope, just as George had done for him. Life had come full circle, and Theodore was ready to continue his journey, embracing the seasons with grace and resilience. He knew that spring always followed winter, bringing new beginnings and endless possibilities. And with that knowledge, he faced the future with an open heart and a renewed spirit. Chapter 4: Henry's Second Sunrise. Henry Whitmore had always been an active man, full of life and energy. At 35, he was a respected architect, a passionate runner, and an avid traveler. His life was a careful balance of work and play, and he took pride in his physical abilities and independence. That balance was shattered one fateful evening. Driving back home from a late-night meeting, Henry's car was struck by a speeding truck. The impact was catastrophic. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors fought to save his life. When he awoke days later, groggy from painkillers and disoriented, he learned the devastating news: his legs had been crushed beyond repair. The surgeons had no choice but to amputate both above the knee. Henry was plunged into a darkness deeper than he had ever known. The world he once navigated with ease now seemed alien and hostile. He was overwhelmed by a sense of loss, not just of his legs, but of his identity, his dreams, and his future. In the weeks following the accident, Henry's life became a monotonous blur of hospital rooms, physical therapy, and well-meaning visitors. His friends and family tried to support him, but their presence often felt suffocating. They offered words of encouragement and sympathy, but Henry found little solace in their attempts to comfort him. He was consumed by a profound depression. The once bright and ambitious architect now saw only darkness and despair. Nights were particularly brutal. Henry lay awake, staring at the ceiling, haunted by memories of the accident and plagued by thoughts of what could have been. His mind churned with self-pity and anger, creating a vicious cycle that left him emotionally and physically exhausted. Despite the efforts of his doctors and therapists, Henry resisted rehabilitation. He refused to engage in exercises, feeling they were futile. The sight of his wheelchair, the symbol of his new reality, filled him with rage and hopelessness. He pushed away those who tried to help, convinced that no one could understand the depth of his suffering. One rainy afternoon, while Henry was staring blankly out of his hospital window, a new face appeared in his room. Dr. Elena Carter, a psychologist specializing in trauma and rehabilitation, introduced herself with a warm but firm demeanor. She was different from the other doctors, direct yet compassionate, with a no-nonsense approach that intrigued Henry. Dr. Carter visited Henry regularly, patiently encouraging him to talk about his feelings. At first, he was reluctant, offering monosyllabic answers and avoiding eye contact. But Dr. Carter's persistence slowly broke through his defenses. She shared stories of other patients who had faced similar challenges, emphasizing their resilience and eventual recovery. During one session, Dr. Carter brought in a guest, a man named Jack, a former soldier who had lost both legs in combat. Jack's story was one of unimaginable hardship, but also of incredible strength and determination. He spoke candidly about his own struggles with depression and how he had found purpose and meaning in his new life. Jack's story resonated with Henry. For the first time since the accident, he saw a glimmer of hope. If Jack could rebuild his life, perhaps he could too. Encouraged by Jack's visit and Dr. Carter's unwavering support, Henry decided to give rehabilitation another try. It was a slow and painful process. Each day presented new challenges, both physical and emotional. But with each small victory, a completed exercise, a successful transfer from bed to wheelchair, Henry began to regain a sense of control over his life. Dr. Carter introduced Henry to mindfulness and meditation, helping him to manage his anxiety and depression. He learned to focus on the present moment, rather than being consumed by thoughts of the past or fears for the future. These practices didn't eliminate his pain, but they made it more bearable. Henry also started to explore the possibilities offered by prosthetic limbs. Initially, the idea filled him with dread. He couldn't imagine himself walking again, let alone running. But his prosthetist, a kind and patient woman named Sarah, guided him through the process with empathy and expertise. She fitted him with a pair of state-of-the-art prosthetic legs, tailored to his needs and goals. Months passed, and Henry's progress was steady. He learned to walk with his prosthetics, first with the aid of parallel bars, then crutches, and eventually on his own. Each step was a triumph, a testament to his determination and hard work. His newfound mobility reignited his passion for architecture. With Dr. Carter's encouragement, Henry began working on a new project, designing an accessible housing complex for people with disabilities. The project gave him a sense of purpose and a reason to look forward to the future. He poured his heart and soul into the design, drawing on his own experiences to create spaces that were functional, beautiful, and empowering. Henry also reconnected with his friends and family. He apologized for pushing them away and found that they were still there, ready to support him. Their encouragement and understanding made a world of difference, helping him feel less isolated and more hopeful. One of his friends, Lisa, introduced him to a support group for amputees. Initially hesitant, Henry decided to give it a try. The group met weekly, providing a safe space for people to share their experiences, offer support, and network. Henry found solace in knowing he wasn't alone in his struggles. He made new friends, learned valuable coping strategies, and gained a renewed sense of community. As the years went by, Henry continued to build on his progress. His architectural firm, which had struggled in his absence, began to thrive again under his leadership. His designs, inspired by his own journey, received critical acclaim and numerous awards. He became an advocate for accessibility and inclusion in architecture, using his platform to raise awareness and drive change. Henry's personal life also flourished. He met a woman named Emily at one of the support group meetings. She had lost an arm in a car accident and was navigating her own journey of recovery and self-discovery. They bonded over their shared experiences, supporting each other through the ups and downs of their new lives. Their relationship blossomed, grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and love. Together, Henry and Emily embarked on new adventures. They traveled, explored new hobbies, and continued to support each other's dreams. Henry took up adaptive sports, discovering a passion for wheelchair basketball and hand cycling. These activities not only kept him physically fit but also provided a sense of camaraderie and achievement. Henry's journey from despair to resilience inspired many. He was invited to speak at conferences and workshops, sharing his story and advocating for greater accessibility and inclusion. His talks were powerful, filled with honesty and hope, and they touched the lives of countless people facing their own challenges. Henry also continued his work in architecture, designing spaces that were not only accessible but also beautiful and innovative. His projects ranged from residential complexes to public buildings, each one reflecting his commitment to inclusivity and excellence. He mentored young architects, encouraging them to think beyond traditional boundaries and to create designs that served everyone. In his personal life, Henry and Emily built a life filled with love, laughter, and adventure. They supported each other's dreams and celebrated each other's successes. Their relationship was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of mutual support. One sunny afternoon, as Henry sat on a park bench, watching children play and people pass by, he reflected on his journey. The accident had taken his legs, but it had given him a new perspective on life. It had taught him the value of resilience, the importance of community, and the power of purpose. He smiled, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. He had faced unimaginable hardships, but he had emerged stronger and more determined. He had built a life filled with meaning and joy, and he was ready to continue his journey, embracing whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. Years later, Henry's legacy continued to grow. His architectural firm had expanded, taking on projects around the world. His designs had set new standards for accessibility and inclusivity, earning him recognition and accolades. He had become a prominent advocate for disability rights, using his voice and platform to drive change and inspire others. Henry and Emily's relationship deepened over the years. They married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by family and friends. Their home was a reflection of their love and shared vision, filled with art, books, and memories of their adventures. They continued to support each other's dreams, celebrating each other's successes and navigating life's challenges together. Henry also continued to mentor young architects, sharing his knowledge and experiences. He encouraged them to think creatively and to design with empathy and inclusivity in mind. His influence extended beyond the architectural community, inspiring people from all walks of life to embrace resilience and to strive for excellence. One day, as Henry sat in his office, he received a letter from a young man who had attended one of his talks. The man, who had lost both legs in a similar accident, wrote about how Henry's story had given him hope and the courage to rebuild his life. He thanked Henry for being a beacon of strength and inspiration. Reading the letter, Henry felt a surge of emotion. He had come full circle, from a place of darkness and despair to one of light and purpose. His journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also been filled with growth, love, and fulfillment. As he looked out the window at the bustling city below, Henry felt a profound sense of peace. He knew that life would continue to bring its ups and downs, but he was ready to face them with resilience and determination. He had found his purpose, and he was ready to continue his journey, embracing each new day with hope and gratitude. With a smile, Henry picked up his pen and began to write a letter in response, sharing his own journey and encouraging the young man to keep moving forward. Life was a journey, and Henry was determined to make the most of every moment, leaving a legacy of hope, resilience, and inspiration for future generations. Chapter 5: Benjamin's Canvas. Benjamin Collins was an artist whose talent was widely recognized. His work adorned galleries, private collections, and public spaces. Known for his vibrant use of color and evocative brushstrokes, Benjamin's paintings were a reflection of his soul, dynamic, passionate, and full of life. At 38, he was at the peak of his career, preparing for a major solo exhibition that would solidify his place in the art world. That all changed in an instant. One rainy evening, as Benjamin was driving home from his studio, a car ran a red light and collided with his vehicle. The impact was devastating. Benjamin was rushed to the hospital with multiple injuries, the most severe being to his right hand. Despite the doctor's best efforts, they couldn't save it. He lost his dominant hand, the very hand that had created his masterpieces. When Benjamin woke up and learned the news, he was overwhelmed with despair. The hand that had been the conduit for his creativity, the hand that had defined his identity as an artist, was gone. He couldn't imagine life without painting, and the future seemed bleak and uncertain. Returning home from the hospital, Benjamin found his apartment filled with reminders of his past life. The easel stood in the corner, a canvas mid-progress still mounted on it. Tubes of paint, brushes, and sketches were scattered about, remnants of a world that now felt beyond his reach. The sight of them filled him with a profound sense of loss. Days turned into weeks, and Benjamin withdrew from the world. He ignored calls and messages from friends and family, unable to face their sympathy or attempts to cheer him up. His agent, gallery owners, and fellow artists reached out, but he couldn't bear to speak with them. The once vibrant apartment became a dark and silent cave, mirroring his inner turmoil. He spent hours sitting in front of the television, numbing his mind with mindless programs. The act of creating, which had been his lifeline, now felt like an impossible dream. The depression took hold of him, dragging him deeper into a pit of hopelessness. Nights were the hardest. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind a whirlwind of dark thoughts and regrets. One afternoon, as Benjamin sat by his window staring blankly at the city below, he noticed an elderly woman in the park across the street. She was sketching, her movements deliberate and graceful. There was something about her focus and calm demeanor that intrigued him. Over the next few days, he found himself watching her regularly, curious about her work. One day, summoning what little energy he had, Benjamin decided to go to the park. He approached the woman cautiously, feeling a strange mix of anxiety and curiosity. She looked up and smiled warmly as he neared. "Hello there," she said. "I've seen you watching me from your window. Would you like to join me?" Benjamin hesitated but then nodded. He sat down beside her, watching as she sketched the trees and people around them with practiced ease. Her name was Margaret, a retired art teacher who had taken up sketching again to pass the time. Margaret didn't pry into Benjamin's life or his reasons for being there. Instead, she talked about her love for art, her teaching days, and the joy of creating. Her passion was infectious, and Benjamin found himself opening up to her in ways he hadn't with anyone else since the accident. He told her about his career, the accident, and his despair over losing his hand. Margaret listened with empathy and understanding. When he finished, she said, "Art is more than the hand that creates it, Benjamin. It's a reflection of the soul. There are many ways to express that soul. Perhaps it's time to explore new ones." Margaret's words lingered in Benjamin's mind. He was skeptical but also desperate for any ray of hope. One day, she brought him a sketchpad and a set of pencils. "Try drawing with your left hand," she suggested. "It will be difficult at first, but you might surprise yourself." Benjamin felt a surge of frustration and doubt. How could he possibly create anything with his non-dominant hand? But Margaret's unwavering belief in him gave him the courage to try. He began with simple shapes and lines, each stroke awkward and clumsy. The first few attempts were frustrating, but Margaret encouraged him to keep going, reminding him that mastery took time and patience. Slowly, Benjamin began to see improvement. The lines became steadier, the shapes more defined. The act of creating, even imperfectly, brought a glimmer of satisfaction he hadn't felt in months. He started spending more time at the park with Margaret, sketching the scenes around him and rediscovering the joy of observation. As the weeks passed, Benjamin's confidence grew. He moved from simple sketches to more complex compositions, experimenting with different techniques and styles. Margaret introduced him to various artists who had overcome physical limitations to create incredible work. Their stories were inspiring, showing him that his journey, while difficult, was not impossible. Benjamin also began to explore other mediums. He experimented with sculpture, finding solace in shaping clay with his left hand. The tactile nature of the medium was therapeutic, allowing him to express emotions he couldn't put into words. He also tried digital art, using software that enabled him to create with greater precision and ease. Margaret continued to be a guiding presence, offering feedback, encouragement, and companionship. She introduced Benjamin to an art therapist named Dr. Caldwell, who specialized in helping artists overcome physical and emotional challenges. Dr. Caldwell's sessions provided a safe space for Benjamin to explore his feelings and find new ways to connect with his creativity. Benjamin's artistic journey took on a new dimension as he started integrating his experiences into his work. His paintings became more abstract and emotive, reflecting the turmoil and growth he had undergone. He discovered a new voice in his art, one that was raw, honest, and deeply personal. He also began to share his story with others, speaking at support groups and art therapy sessions. His journey resonated with many, offering hope and inspiration to those facing their own struggles. The connections he made with others enriched his life, bringing a sense of purpose and community. One of his most significant breakthroughs came when he was invited to participate in a group exhibition focusing on resilience and transformation. The exhibition featured artists who had overcome various challenges to create impactful work. Benjamin was hesitant at first, but Margaret and Dr. Caldwell encouraged him to seize the opportunity. The opening night of the exhibition was a nerve-wracking experience. Benjamin's heart raced as he entered the gallery, unsure of how his work would be received. But as he moved through the space, he saw people engaging with his paintings, their expressions reflecting a range of emotions. Some were moved to tears, others lost in thought. His art was speaking to them, and that realization filled him with a profound sense of fulfillment. The exhibition was a turning point for Benjamin. It marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life and career. He received positive reviews from critics and fellow artists, and several of his pieces were sold to collectors. The validation was gratifying, but what mattered most to him was the impact his work had on others. Buoyed by this success, Benjamin continued to push the boundaries of his creativity. He explored collaborative projects, working with other artists, musicians, and writers to create multimedia experiences. These collaborations opened new avenues for expression and connection, enriching his artistic practice. Benjamin also took on a mentorship role, guiding young artists who faced their own challenges. He taught workshops, shared his techniques, and encouraged them to embrace their unique voices. His journey had come full circle, from a place of despair to one of renewal and growth. His relationship with Margaret deepened, evolving into a profound friendship built on mutual respect and shared passion. They continued to meet regularly, sketching in the park and discussing art, life, and everything in between. Margaret's wisdom and kindness had been a beacon of hope in his darkest times, and he was grateful for her unwavering support. Years later, Benjamin's story had become an inspiration to many. He was invited to speak at conferences, universities, and art schools, sharing his journey and the lessons he had learned. His work continued to evolve, reflecting the complexity and richness of his experiences. One sunny afternoon, Benjamin found himself back in the park where he had first met Margaret. He sat on a bench, sketchpad in hand, lost in thought. A young woman approached him, her eyes filled with admiration and curiosity. "Are you Benjamin Collins?" she asked. "Your story has inspired me so much. I'm an artist too, and I've been struggling with a disability. Seeing your work and hearing your journey has given me hope." Benjamin smiled warmly, recognizing the spark of determination in her eyes. He invited her to sit with him, sharing his sketchpad and pencils. As they sketched together, he offered words of encouragement and advice, knowing that her journey, like his, would be filled with challenges and triumphs. His legacy was not just in the art he created but in the lives he touched and the hope he inspired. Benjamin had learned that art was not confined to the hand that created it but was a reflection of the soul. And his soul, scarred yet resilient, continued to find expression and beauty in the world. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the park, Benjamin felt a deep sense of peace. He had faced unimaginable loss and found a way to rebuild his life and his art. His journey was a testament to the power of resilience, creativity, and the human spirit. And with that knowledge, he was ready to continue his journey, embracing each new day with hope and gratitude. Chapter 6: Eleanor's Journey Through Shadows. Eleanor Sanders had always been a meticulous person. As a child, she was known for her impeccable organization and cleanliness. But as she grew older, these traits intensified into something far more consuming. By the time she reached her late 20s, Eleanor's life was dictated by a relentless fear of contamination. Her days began with a ritualistic morning routine that took hours. She scrubbed every inch of her bathroom, disinfected surfaces repeatedly, and washed her hands until they were raw and chapped. Leaving the house was a monumental task. The thought of touching doorknobs, using public transportation, or shaking hands with someone sent her into a panic. Eleanor's contamination OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder, had taken over her life. She avoided social gatherings, struggled to maintain relationships, and had to quit her job as a graphic designer. The once vibrant and creative woman now found herself isolated, trapped in a prison of her own making. Depression soon followed, deepening her sense of hopelessness. One rainy afternoon, Eleanor sat in her apartment, staring blankly at the television. The shows she once enjoyed now provided no comfort. Her thoughts were consumed by her fear of contamination, the rituals she felt compelled to perform, and the overwhelming loneliness that had become her constant companion. Her family and friends tried to reach out, but their well-meaning attempts to help often ended in frustration and misunderstandings. They couldn't understand why she couldn't just stop worrying or snap out of it. Eleanor felt like a burden, and the guilt added to her depression. The breaking point came one evening when Eleanor found herself unable to leave her apartment for a week. The garbage piled up, and the mail went unopened. She hadn't showered or eaten properly, too consumed by her rituals and the paralysis of her fear. It was then that she realized she couldn't continue living like this. She needed help. Desperate for change, Eleanor decided to seek professional help. She made an appointment with Dr. Henderson, a therapist specializing in OCD and anxiety disorders. The first session was nerve-wracking. Eleanor was skeptical about whether therapy could truly help her, but she was willing to try anything to reclaim her life. Dr. Henderson's office was a serene space, filled with calming colors and soft lighting. She greeted Eleanor with a warm smile and invited her to sit. They began with the basics, discussing Eleanor's history, her struggles, and the impact OCD had on her life. Dr. Henderson listened intently, without judgment, creating a safe space for Eleanor to open up. Over the next few weeks, they delved deeper into Eleanor's fears and rituals. Dr. Henderson introduced cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a structured approach to treating OCD. They focused on exposure and response prevention, ERP, a technique designed to help Eleanor confront her fears and gradually reduce her compulsive behaviors. The first ERP exercises were incredibly challenging. Dr. Henderson started with small exposures, such as touching a doorknob without immediately washing her hands. Eleanor's anxiety skyrocketed, but Dr. Henderson guided her through the process, helping her to tolerate the discomfort and resist the urge to perform her usual rituals. Each small victory built Eleanor's confidence. She began to see that her fears, while intense, didn't necessarily reflect reality. She started keeping a journal, documenting her exposures, her feelings, and her progress. It was a way to track her journey and remind herself of the progress she was making. Dr. Henderson also encouraged Eleanor to explore mindfulness and relaxation techniques. She learned to meditate, focusing on her breath and bringing her attention back to the present moment whenever her mind started to spiral. These practices didn't eliminate her anxiety, but they provided tools to manage it more effectively. As the months passed, Eleanor's hard work began to pay off. She faced increasingly difficult exposures, like using public transportation and attending social gatherings. Each challenge was met with anxiety, but also with a growing sense of accomplishment. Eleanor realized that she was stronger than she had ever given herself credit for. Her relationship with her family and friends improved as well. She began to open up about her struggles, explaining OCD in a way they could understand. Their support, once distant and confused, became a source of strength. They celebrated her victories with her, no matter how small, and provided a network of encouragement. One of the most significant breakthroughs came when Eleanor decided to return to work. She found a part-time job at a local art gallery, a place where she could immerse herself in creativity and beauty. The gallery owner, a kind and understanding woman named Clara, knew about Eleanor's OCD and offered her a supportive environment. Working at the gallery brought a sense of normalcy back to Eleanor's life. She loved being surrounded by art and interacting with visitors. It was challenging, especially on days when her anxiety was high, but it also gave her a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. Eleanor continued her therapy with Dr. Henderson, delving deeper into the roots of her OCD and addressing the underlying issues that fueled her fears. They explored her childhood, her need for control, and the perfectionism that had driven her for so long. It was a painful but necessary journey, one that helped Eleanor to understand herself better and to develop healthier ways of coping. She also became involved in an OCD support group, where she met others who shared similar struggles. Hearing their stories and sharing her own was incredibly validating. The group provided a sense of community and reminded Eleanor that she wasn't alone in her journey. One of her new friends from the support group, a woman named Grace, invited Eleanor to join her in a charity run. Grace had overcome her own OCD and found running to be a powerful way to manage her anxiety. Eleanor was hesitant at first, but she decided to give it a try. Training for the run became a new goal, a way to channel her energy and focus on something positive. The day of the charity run was a milestone for Eleanor. As she crossed the finish line, she felt a surge of pride and accomplishment. It wasn't just about the run, it was about everything she had overcome to get there. Her journey wasn't over, but she was moving forward, step by step. Eleanor's life continued to evolve in positive ways. She expanded her role at the art gallery, taking on more responsibilities and even organizing exhibitions. Her creativity flourished, and she found joy in her work again. She also reconnected with old friends and made new ones, building a support network that enriched her life. Her relationship with her family deepened. They had always loved her, but now they understood her better. They saw the strength and resilience she had shown in facing her OCD and supported her every step of the way. Eleanor also began to give back to the community. She volunteered with organizations that supported mental health awareness and advocacy. She spoke at events, sharing her story and encouraging others to seek help. Her journey had taught her the importance of breaking the stigma around mental health and providing support to those in need. One of the most profound changes was in Eleanor's relationship with herself. She learned to be kinder and more compassionate towards herself. She accepted that she wasn't perfect and that it was okay to have bad days. She celebrated her progress and forgave herself for setbacks. This self-compassion was a crucial part of her healing. Years later, Eleanor's journey with OCD and depression had transformed her life in ways she never imagined. She was no longer defined by her fears but by her strength and resilience. Her art, once stifled by her anxiety, blossomed into a powerful expression of her journey. She held exhibitions that drew large crowds, her work resonating with many who saw their own struggles reflected in her paintings. Eleanor also became a mentor to others facing similar challenges. She started a blog, sharing her experiences and offering advice and support. Her writing reached people around the world, creating a community of understanding and empathy. She was invited to speak at conferences and workshops, where she inspired many with her story of hope and perseverance. Her relationship with Grace deepened into a close friendship. They continued to run together, setting new goals and supporting each other through life's ups and downs. Grace's encouragement and companionship were invaluable, reminding Eleanor of the power of friendship and mutual support. Eleanor's work at the art gallery evolved as well. She took on a leadership role, curating exhibitions and mentoring young artists. The gallery thrived under her guidance, becoming a hub of creativity and community. Clara, the gallery owner, became a close friend and confidant, their shared love of art creating a bond that enriched both their lives. One sunny afternoon, as Eleanor walked through the park near her apartment, she reflected on her journey. The park, once a place of fear and anxiety, had become a symbol of her resilience and growth. She watched children play, couples stroll hand in hand, and felt a deep sense of peace. Eleanor knew that her journey wasn't over. OCD was a part of her life, but it no longer controlled her. She had learned to manage it, to live with it, and to thrive despite it. She was grateful for the support of Dr. Henderson, Grace, her family, and all those who had helped her along the way. As she continued her walk, Eleanor felt a sense of gratitude for the person she had become. She was stronger, more compassionate, and more resilient than she had ever imagined. Her journey through the shadows had led her to a place of light and hope. Eleanor smiled, knowing that she was ready to face whatever the future held. She had discovered her strength, her creativity, and her capacity for love and compassion. And with that knowledge, she was ready to continue her journey, embracing each new day with courage and joy. Eleanor's life blossomed in ways she had never anticipated. The connections she had formed through her blog and public speaking brought her into contact with a diverse array of individuals, each with their own unique stories and challenges. These interactions enriched her understanding of mental health and inspired her to advocate even more fiercely for those struggling with OCD and depression. She decided to write a book about her journey, not only detailing her personal experiences but also including practical advice and strategies that had helped her. The process of writing was cathartic, allowing her to reflect on how far she had come. The book, titled Through the Shadows, A Journey of Overcoming OCD, quickly became a bestseller, touching countless lives and providing hope to those in similar situations. Eleanor's art also continued to evolve. She experimented with different mediums and techniques, finding new ways to express the complex emotions she had experienced. Her exhibitions became highly anticipated events, and her work was praised for its depth and authenticity. Critics and art lovers alike were captivated by the raw emotion and resilience that shone through her pieces. With her increased visibility and influence, Eleanor dedicated herself to giving back to the community. She established a foundation that provided resources and support for individuals with OCD and other anxiety disorders. The foundation offered free therapy sessions, support groups, and educational programs aimed at raising awareness and reducing the stigma surrounding mental health issues. Eleanor also became involved in policy advocacy, working with lawmakers to improve mental health services and ensure better support for those affected by OCD. She traveled to various conferences and meetings, using her voice to advocate for change and share her story with those in positions of power. Her foundation also funded research into new treatments and therapies for OCD, providing grants to scientists and clinicians working to advance the understanding and treatment of the disorder. Through these efforts, Eleanor hoped to create a lasting impact that would benefit future generations. As Eleanor continued to grow professionally and personally, she found a new sense of balance and fulfillment in her life. She rekindled old friendships and formed new ones, building a strong support network that enriched her life. Her relationship with Grace remained a cornerstone of her support system, and the two women often reflected on their journeys and the strength they had found in each other. Eleanor also began a romantic relationship with a kind and understanding man named David, whom she met at one of her art exhibitions. David was drawn to Eleanor's resilience and passion, and their relationship blossomed into a deep and supportive partnership. David's unwavering support and love provided Eleanor with an additional source of strength and happiness. Together, Eleanor and David traveled, explored new hobbies, and continued to support each other's dreams. Their relationship was built on mutual respect, understanding, and a shared commitment to personal growth. They often collaborated on projects for Eleanor's foundation, combining their talents and resources to make a positive impact on the world. Years later, Eleanor stood on the stage of a packed auditorium, preparing to deliver a keynote speech at an international mental health conference. As she looked out at the audience, she felt a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. Her journey from the depths of depression and OCD to this moment had been long and challenging, but it had also been filled with growth, resilience, and triumph. She began her speech by sharing her story, speaking candidly about the struggles she had faced and the steps she had taken to overcome them. She emphasized the importance of seeking help, building a support network, and finding healthy ways to cope with anxiety and fear. Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom were inspired by her journey and encouraged to seek help for their own struggles. Eleanor concluded her speech with a message of hope and empowerment. We all face challenges in life, but it's how we respond to them that defines us. No matter how dark things may seem, there is always a path to the light. By supporting each other and believing in our own strength, we can overcome anything. As the audience erupted into applause, Eleanor felt a deep sense of fulfillment and pride. She had not only transformed her own life but had also helped countless others find their own paths to healing and resilience. Her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever came next with courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to making a difference. Walking off the stage, Eleanor joined David and Grace, who were waiting for her with beaming smiles. They embraced, and Eleanor felt a rush of gratitude for the incredible people who had supported her along the way. Together, they left the auditorium, ready to continue their journey and to help others find their own paths through the shadows to the light.